Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles and I'm your host here in Harlingen, Texas in the Rio Grande Valley of deep South Texas. In just a few moments, our South Texas correspondent Sandra Sanchez is going to be joining us to talk about a few different topics, including the latest, the latest from President Trump and him being upset with one of the congressmen here in the Rio Grande Valley after he pardoned him last week. So we're going to hear about that and some other topics that she's been working on today. But first, as always, let's go ahead and take a look at what's trending across the border. Starting with a number of human rights groups have sent a letter to the heads of ICE and Fort Bliss urging the government to stop the detention of migrants Camp East Montana. That's a massive tent camp at Fort Bliss in El Paso. The ACLU and others say the immigrants are beaten and sexually abused by officers. They also say the immigrants have been medically neglected, given insufficient food, and insufficient access to legal help. The letter comes just weeks after El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar warned that people detained at Fort Bliss were given foul-tasting drinking water, rotten food, and inadequate health care. The human rights groups say they've interviewed more than 45 people detained at the facility. In other news, the Department of Homeland Security has unveiled a new website called The Worst of the Worst. It is a site that gathers information on undocumented immigrants who've been arrested because of their criminal backgrounds. Here's a look at what that looks like. Now, DHS says the site has hundreds of thousands of suspects listed for all 50 states, and it gives the suspect's name, the crime they are accused of committing or convicted of, a photo, and where they were arrested. Homeland Security says all of the suspects were detained during immigration stings since President Donald Trump took office at the beginning of the year. And happening south of the border, police in the Mexican border state of Chihuahua are assigning 500 officers to protect the thousands of U.S. residents who will be visiting family members during the holidays. The officers will be cruising the main highways leading from the U.S. border at El Paso and Presidio, Texas, to the interior of Mexico through early January. They will be supported by Mexican National Guard troops, the Army, and municipal officers in Juarez, Chihuahua City, Parral, and other urban areas. Police will also be monitoring thousands of surveillance cameras in those cities and along highways to respond to emergencies, he said. Time now to bring in our South Texas correspondent Sandra Sanchez to talk about a couple different topics. Before we get to what's going on with the president and U.S. Representative Henry Cuellar, Sandra, you've got some new reporting about one group of lawyers and what their thoughts are on this travel ban and reduction in work permit time. Fill us in.
Right. This afternoon, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, also known as AILA, held a press conference via Zoom, and they also issued a policy brief in which they were critical of, the travel ban was issued in June, but the administration last week said that they will halt travel from the people from these 19 countries, as well as asylum applications. And many of these applications, as we talked about last week, have been, in the court system, in the works for years, and basically it's an all stop for it. They're saying that, it's wrong to do this to an entire group of people from these 19 countries if the administration is just trying to root out those who might be here trying to do harm to anyone in the country. They say it will cost more for the Department of Homeland Security, USCIS. They're going to have to re-vet all these people who, like I mentioned, have gone through years of already interviews and vetting and applications, and this has not been done before. So how much is this going to cost the administration? As well as there are rumors that the 19 countries could swell to 32 countries. Now, we don't know if that's going to happen, but we keep hearing that number could significantly go up. They're also critical. Recently, the administration announced they were cutting the work permit, the time that these people can work legally in the United States, from 5 years to 18 months. And with the application process and the renewals, it's really going to limit the amount of time it's going to, we talked about this on the show before. We had an interview with an author of a book talking about how important foreign physicians are to coming to the United States. It's going to greatly limit the amount of work that people can do in the country. They're saying the economy is going to suffer, jobs are going to be cut. Ultimately, everyone is going to be hurt by this. And they're saying that it's going to lead to more backlog for immigration court cases, which are over 3.4 million to date, according to track of Syracuse University Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, which tracks these files. Mostly they're saying, bottom line, the United States government, which is deeming these countries, this action as discretionary. And they're saying what's really troublesome is it bypasses the U.S. court system. There is going to be no judicial review. The administration has the ability, if they deem something of public threat to the public, that it does not go through the court system. They have the full authority to issue this. And they're saying that, that violates humanitarian rights, and there's just no judicial oversight. We have a clip from Ben Johnson. He's director of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Here's a little bit about what he had to say today.
The last 2 weeks, in the wake of a truly tragic attack on 2 National Guard members, we have seen an unprecedented wave of draconian policy changes coming out of the administration in the name of security. These are not narrow, targeted shifts. They are sweeping attacks on the entire legal immigration system that will impact millions of innocent citizens and entire immigrant communities. The ripple effects of these policies will be felt in every corner of our economy and in communities across the nation. We're talking about canceled naturalization ceremonies and potentially thousands of USCIS and State Department appointments, pausing asylum and adjustment of status cases, work authorization being arbitrarily shortened, and entire categories of people suddenly thrown into limbo. These policies don't just disrupt paperwork, they derail lives. They separate residents, separate families, destabilize workplaces, leave employers scrambling, and send a message to longtime residents who have done everything the government has asked of them that they are expendable. What makes this moment even more disturbing to me is the way it's been wrapped in rhetoric from the President and the Secretary of Homeland Security that is frankly disgusting. We've heard entire communities described as garbage, leeches, and worthless. It's the kind of language you would expect from David Duke and the KKK, not from the White House and Department of Homeland Security. To hear it coming from our highest officers in government should shock the conscience of every American. Words like that are not just offensive, they're dangerous. When you dehumanize whole groups of people, it becomes easier to justify stripping them of due process, tearing apart their families, or shutting them out of the legal pathways that have defined Americans' promise for generations. What we are seeing now is policy being built on prejudice and fear, not on facts or the law or any coherent vision of public safety. These policies are already causing chaos in the courts and at our agencies, and they will undermine our healthcare system, our businesses, our schools, and our communities. This is not how you keep a country safe. This is how you sow fear and instability. So, among other things, AILA is calling on Congress to ensure that USCIS, Department of State, and other agencies faithfully execute their statutorily mandated duties and rescind these unjustified new policies immediately.
Sandra, you mentioned something earlier about how this could affect the economy. One of the things that President Trump himself has said is that there aren't enough Americans who can do some of the things that people who immigrate to the United States every single day can do. So why is the administration implementing these changes? Well,
primarily they're saying it's for public safety, and it comes after the shooting of 2 National Guard soldiers from West Virginia just before Thanksgiving, and that's when this travel ban was announced. And just an update, the tragic shooting resulted in 1 death of Sarah Beckstrom, 20 years old, and then Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf. He has a head wound, but he remains in serious condition, and he is showing signs of slow healing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for reporting on this, but stick around, please, because we're going to be talking about President Trump a little more when we return, and specifically his fight with a South Texas border congressman after giving him a pardon last week. So stay with us. Border Report Live is back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mideles. So as we told you last week on Border Report Live, Congressman Henry Cuellar was pardoned last week, and then he immediately filed for re-election as a Democrat for Texas's 28th district that represents Laredo and parts of the Rio Grande Valley along the Texas border, all the way down here to parts of Starr County in the Rio Grande Valley. So after that happened on the weekend, President Trump said he was disappointed in Cuellar and took to social media and said, quote, "Such a lack of loyalty, something that Texas voters and Henry's daughters will not like." He wrote on Truth Social, going on to say, "Oh, well, next time, no more Mr. Nice Guy." I wanted to bring in our South Texas correspondent Sandra Sanchez again because you spoke with Cuellar at length on Friday. Did you ask him if he was going to stay a Democrat?
I did, Rudy. And, he said he's a bipartisan conservative Democrat, always has been, always will be. We spoke for 21 minutes on a number of topics, mostly about the pardon. He was indicted on bribery charges, and he was fully and unconditionally pardoned by President Trump, and then immediately went and filed for re-election for the 20th district as a Democrat. So I want to let this clip run a little bit and let folks hear what he has to say about, what his political makeup is and has always been.
There were rumors that you were going to switch parties, but you filed for re-election as a Democrat. Do you intend to be a lifelong Democrat, sir?
Look, quite honestly, since I was in the state legislature, people have asked me to, be a Republican, and we saw this here. But look, I'm a conservative Democrat, a very bipartisan. Sometimes the lefties don't like that, but I'm not here to represent the party. I'm not here to represent the party. I follow the words of LBJ that said, "I'm an American, I'm a Texan, I'm a Democrat," in that order. And I think, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, you don't go represent the party. You go represent the people that you got elected by. And that's what I do. And that's what I am. I'm a Democrat, very bipartisan. But I'm a Democrat.
You mentioned the word lefties twice. You are a conservative Democrat. You've always had some issues such as abortion that you have never wavered on. And you've taken a lot of criticism over the years for that, but you've always stuck to your guns. Does this experience further cement in your mind going forward who you are and what you plan to be in Congress?
Look, a person is defined by values, by beliefs, by culture, by a lot of things. And I think I've been defined, by my parents, Martin and Odilia Cuellar, by my belief in God. I'm a Catholic. And yes, we're all defined by certain values and beliefs and religious beliefs. And yes, I am pro-life, but I'm not one of those extremists on pro-life. I don't, like some people say, well, I'm pro-choice and you're this, so we're going to take you out. The problem with some of the people on the left, is, and again, they spend over $20 million against me, and I'm here. And I can tell you this, is that they try to purify the party. And if you're not like them, then they want to take you out. And that's what it is. We see the same thing in the Republican, where the extreme right is trying to go after the moderate Republicans. We see that in the party itself, in the Democratic Party. But look, I don't believe in open borders. I believe in sensible gun rights. I believe in oil and gas. I believe in strong border security, which I've been attacked by. But again, I'm not here to represent the party. I'm here to represent my district.
Going back to that conversation, we heard he was surprised when he found out about the pardon from President Trump. I think a lot of us South Texas reporters were a little shocked by that pardon coming from the president to Congressman Cuellar. But how did it all go down?
Well, of course, he was grateful, but he said he was surprised. He said he had no conversations with President Trump prior to this. He learned about it from a text from a female reporter who sent it to him. He actually thought when she sent the text asking, how do you feel about the pardon, that he was referencing the pardon for the president of Honduras, the former president of Honduras. And then he had, it wasn't. Now, his daughters wrote a letter, a very lengthy letter, and he was aware of the daughters writing the letter, and he cautioned that the president might not read it. So, he knew there was, that there were some outreach to the White House. But here's what he said about the pardon itself.
Do you think you were targeted because of your open conversations, criticisms of the Biden administration for, border, what was happening here with thousands of migrants crossing the border every day?
Absolutely. No ifs, no buts. And I'll go into a lot more detail at a later time because, as you know, in the past, I could only say I'm innocent. My wife is innocent. But now, we will talk a little bit right now, but then later on, we can talk a lot more about what they did. But look, a couple of things. Absolutely. I looked up, and maybe I'm going to have my staff post this, the number of times I was critical of the administration. And I tried to work with them at the beginning, but they apparently had an open border mentality on it. And I looked at it, I think it was over 150 times national media. It doesn't even include local media, but just national media on it. I was very, very critical about it, number one. The fact that they didn't sit down and say, Congressman, do you have a legal opinion that allows you, on spousal employment? They didn't ask about that. They didn't ask whether I had gone to ethics opinions before my wife got into the employment. They didn't ask that. So here I am, a legal opinion, all before everything. Any work that my wife did, to ethics opinion to make sure that we were doing everything right. And if you recall, I was going through a very contested primary where the lefties were running against me in the elections where they spent over $20 million on it. How do you do a raid 40 days before a contested election on it? And I can say this, we've looked at the testimony, the discovery, with my lawyers. Not a single witness said quid pro quo.
Actually, that clip we were going to play in a second, but that clip talks about the May 2024 indictment. He's obviously very angry about it. He wants a congressional investigation into this entire indictment. He calls it entrapment, says he was part of a sting operation. As you heard, he's upset about it. He says, that nothing was proven. There was no quid pro quo. Going back to how he responded to the pardon and how it came down, we can play this clip and hear what he said.
Well, first, I'm very thankful to the president on behalf of my wife and I. Very thankful to the president. Number one. Number two, very grateful that God has been with us. I can tell you it's very hard on a family, on my wife and my kids to go through something very, very difficult through this. And now, clear skies, open road. We're going to continue doing the work. As you know, redistricting, Supreme Court says that I get to go back to Hidalgo. So I look forward to working with the folks in Hidalgo again. But again, to the president, I have not talked to him. There is a Christmas party next week that I go every year to the White House, and certainly want to thank him personally at that time.
So this was a surprise. You did not know this was coming.
There was a text that I got from a reporter asking me about a pardon, and I thought she was talking about the president of Honduras' pardon. And she said, no, yours on it. And I said, I don't know anything about it. She sent it over. And then that's when I said, let me review this. And I had to read it twice to see that.
So the Christmas party is this week, and we'll see what kind of interaction President Trump has with Congressman Cuellar, given how he did file as a Democrat.
Yeah, it should be interesting because it seems like he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? He wants this, he got this pardon from a Republican president, President Trump. He immediately filed again for re-election, excuse me, as a Democrat, which, as we saw on Sunday, angered President Trump once again. But now he wants a congressional investigation into all of this, but it seems at the moment he doesn't really have either side, kind of backing his case here for that.
Well, and he's always been very independent, bipartisan, conservative Democrat, as he's put it. But keep in mind, he can always win the election and change parties, So I think this is something we're going to follow forever. A number of lawmakers down here have done that in South Texas. This district has increasingly voted more Republican. Many of the counties down here went for President Trump. And, it'll be interesting. We will certainly follow this. But for now, Congressman Henry Cuellar has filed as a Democrat for Texas Congressional District 28.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that because we've seen that so many times, especially in the last 4 years, these folks that have been running and winning office as Democrat for several election cycles. And we're not just talking, at the federal level, we're talking at the state and municipal level too. Right. Not that the municipal level is, a partisan election, but you can kind of see when, Governor Abbott or the president himself sends out a congratulations message to the mayor of a city that's 150,000 strong, which is you would think would be a pretty small city for the president to have his eye on, but yet these messages for these mayors or whoever it may be, switching parties or showing their allegiance to one party or another. But like you said, I have a feeling that we may see a party switch come out of the Texas 28th congressional district in the coming months. Who knows?
It could happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay with us because when we come back, we're going to continue that discussion we had about a story you were working on last week, and that is on the brown jay. So stay with us. Border Report Live is back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles, South Texas Correspondent Sandra Sanchez joining us once again. Sandra, we were talking last week about a very incredibly rare bird, something like 9 of them in the United States that has made its way back down here to the Rio Grande Valley.
Exactly.
Tell us about it.
There's only one of these 9 in the United States is in a sliver of the Rio Grande Valley, far western Starr County. They're really unique and fun to watch. Take a look. I think you're going to enjoy this. Wildlife Preserve in western Starr County on the border with Mexico. I'm whispering because behind me is a brown jay, maybe one of only 9 in the entire United States, and it's drawing people here from all over the world.
We can almost not believe it. It's really special.
Salineno caretaker Bob Bowman says he's thankful for a brown jay that appeared at the nature preserve on Thanksgiving and has been coming back every day since.
Right now, I suspect that there's no more than probably 9 brown jays in the United States, and they're all within about a mile of here. And so this is our sort of stray bird that's left its family.
The preserve is a stone's throw from the Rio Grande, overlooking Tamaulipas, Mexico. Brown jays are often found in Mexico, but this is the only part of the U.S. they come, to this small sliver of the Rio Grande Valley, and one hasn't been seen here for over a decade.
So this bird is a very rare bird for this site especially. We haven't had a brown jay in here for 13 years. We've never seen one, so this is a life bird for me and Kate.
He and his wife Kate are volunteers who manage the preserve during the winter months, and this little bird is bringing in big ecotourism.
When it first showed up on Thanksgiving Day, yes, that really made us thankful that we had already scheduled the trip.
Retirees Joelle and Vicki Simon of Corpus Christi have visited for the past 42 years, and this year they saw an old friend.
But the last time we've seen it was in 2011. and that's a long time not to have a bird on your yearly checklist. So we were very excited to see the bird today.
What is it about this bird that is so special to you?
Well, the bird has always been rare for South Texas. It's strictly, normally a Mexican species. And just to have it show back up in the area after all these years and to come to this area and San Niño is very special.
Green jays, kiskadees, chachalacas, and Audubon's oriole birds are also here, but this year the brown jay is the star. Bowman thinks it's a juvenile male, but he's not sure. One thing they know, he's hungry and he comes back every time they put food out.
It is magical. It's definitely a very special place.
The winter birding season is just underway, and with this brown jay here, it promises to be a good one. In San Niño, Texas, Sandra Sanchez, Border Report.
And that is going to do it for us today. We appreciate you all so much for watching. Make sure to get more reporting on borderreport.com. We'll see you all next time.